Welcome back, everyone, to the PNL IRL podcast. This is your host, Luke, and with me, as always, my co-host, Pat.
Hello, everybody.
Welcome back. It's been an exhausting week, and we have a lot to do this week. We got a special treat for you. This week's big topic, is fake news, and we're going to do it in a little bit of a different format. But we want to start with what's been new lately. We're going to talk a little bit about the sports world and a little bit about the video game world. And the very first thing I thought we'd talk about is how the Jacksonville Jaguars cornerback Jalen Ramsey is throwing flame at literally every single person in the NFL.
He is a brave, brave man, and if you haven't seen it, I think he commented on every single quarterback and whether or not they were good. And in summary, none of them were good.
Yeah. He did an interview. The interview is with GQ, and there's quite a doozy. He kind of goes through some of the quarterbacks that he thinks are good. I, for one, am happy because he thinks my quarterback, Marcus Mariota of the Tennessee Titans, is a great quarterback for their team, is his exact quote out of that article. He also gives Tyrod Taylor some credit. He doesn't buy into the Jimmy G hype, Jimmy Garoppolo. He's not a big fan of Kirk Cousins. And his boy Blake Bortles, this is my favorite quote of this entire article, quote, "Blake do what he gotta do," end quote. That is something to say about your quarterback.
He do what he gotta do, boss.
He do what he gotta do. And he goes on, he talks about how Matt Ryan, is a little bit overrated in his mind. And he is just throwing shade at everyone in different ways. So what are your thoughts on that? Bold move, risky move? Is he trying to get the publicity? My thought was that he may be trying to be like an anti-Revis Island. Because, as soon as Revis got big, Darrelle Revis for the Jets, as soon as he got big and Revis Island became a thing, teams started throwing the other way. So maybe this is Jalen Ramsey saying, hey, come at me. Maybe. What do you think,
Yeah, I
Pat?
think in reality, this is a smart guy who is genuinely one of the most talented quarterbacks currently in the league, and I think he just wants to stir the pot a little, see if he can benefit his defense at all. Worst case scenario, team try it and he fails a couple times, but overall he's still going to be a solid cornerback. So it's kind of a no-lose situation for him unless someone's just really upset about the fact that he's running his mouth.
Yeah, I think I tend to agree with you. I think it's a bold move, but I think, like you said, the dude backs it up with his play. He's an all-caliber player, and I know some people have said, he's young, he's not got a ton of experience. I mean, I think his play on the field speaks for itself. I don't really care how many years of experience he has. He's one of the elite cornerbacks in the game right now, in my judgment. So
Yep.
I think, hey, if you want to talk smack, back it up, but I think he can do that. So we'll have to see how that plays out for Jacksonville. Moving on, though, we have the amazing story, just a little bit late on it, but still a great story of Big Al.
Dude, this is one of my favorite times of the year, first of all, just because I think the Little League World Series is so cool, such a great opportunity and thing for the kids who are participating. But Big Al, he is just your average Little League player, a little on the heavy side. He's a big, strong dude for his age. And his intro, if you guys haven't seen the video, one of my favorite things of the week is, "Hi, my name's Albert. Back home, they call me Big Al. I hit dingers."
Yes, Big Al hits dingers. And there were, and to be fair, let's not just credit Big Al. There were a lot of great Little League intros. They were fun. Some kids, took their hat off and said, "I have the best hair on the team." And, one kid was like, "I do a great chicken impression," and clucked like a chicken. It was hilarious. These kids are having fun, man. And I agree with you. This is some of the best time, one of the best times of the year. There's not a ton going on in pro sports. You got the MLB still going on, but it's kind of dead until, we get the playoff hunt. You got preseason football, NBA offseason. Not a lot going on in the world of sports. And so the Little League World Series just kind of brings it back. Now, unfortunately, from my understanding, we will not see Big Al going forward because Big Al plays for the New Jersey team, and I do not believe that team advanced. I've got the teams going from the different regions, and it looks like I would assume they would be the New England League, and Coventry, Rhode Island advanced there. So unfortunately, it looks like we won't.
He did not hit enough dingers.
Yeah, he did not hit enough dingers. But Big Al, for a brief moment, brought a shining glimmer of happiness and joy into a viral video sensation. So kudos to Big Al. Kudos to all these young athletes who are playing in the Little League World Series, living out their dreams. That is a special, special thing.
Yep, very exciting. Another interesting bit of news this week, especially from the video game industry. Diablo 3 is coming to Nintendo Switch,
Ooh.
which is interesting to me for a couple reasons. One, Blizzard gets to reconnect with Nintendo. That's exciting for them, everybody involved. But what's also interesting for me is Diablo 3 is not a new game.
No.
Yet it is holding up.
Yes.
And people get excited about slightly changed versions of it or new platform versions of it. I mean, it's a neat game. It's not probably my style of game necessarily, but it's not new, yet it's still exciting, which is incredible to me.
Yeah, Diablo 3 came out in 2012, so that game is about 6 years old. And you're right, people.
And it's still exciting.
Yeah, people do still get really hyped. I play it from time to time. It's like a loot grindy RPG, so you're fighting through waves of enemies trying to get loot. It kind of defines the genre in some ways, that grind to get the best gear. And the coolest gear and the best stats. But yeah, man, it coming to the Switch, that's a big deal for people on the Switch. We've had it on the Xbox for a bit. PC's had it since 2012. PS4's had it for a while. But yeah, so the Nintendo fans, get ready. Play some Diablo. It's a fun game. In other news, we've got Fortnite with new skins and challenges. Wow! And as we know, Pat is our Fortnite expert, not me. So thoughts on the new Fortnite skins and the challenges and game modes, Pat?
I mean, of course I play, but, there's actually new stuff all the time. When it's just amazing to me that a company in this day and age is so responsive, so fast to change and add new content, keep you coming back for more. And, of course, it's all cosmetic, so then you pay for it, and you don't actually get any benefit in the game. People are still doing it. They're going all out every week, every month. Every season, and they're always trying to get to that grind and always trying to get the new the battle passes. They're trying, which is the way they sell this cosmetic stuff, the battle passes, trying to get the new gear, trying to get the new skins, and it's something, man. I know I've got a few other friends who really grind for that stuff, and I don't know if that game's gonna slow down anytime soon, but a game that did slow down was Destiny 2. But it's starting to hype back up because on September 4th, the Forsaken DLC will be released. Will you buy it, Pat? I don't think I will. I think I'm just so frustrated with Bungie at this point for being allowed to release unfinished, unpolished games for $60. And a year later, they'll say, hey guys, don't worry, we fixed everything. It's better than ever. We've added all new content, a new raid, new systems. But just give me $40 more and you can have it. So to me, I think the business model is, I don't know if I can continue to support it. I mean, Destiny, the original vanilla Destiny, was my most played game of all time, by far. And I've gone less and less because it's become less and less exciting. I mean, they did it right the first time, more so than they are now. And they still had to go through the Taken King to fix a lot of stuff. But we gave them the benefit of the doubt at the time because at least it was their first round at it. It was their first at the game. It wasn't ideal, so they made it pretty close to ideal. Now they're on the second version and it's still not ideal. It's just getting old.
Yeah, and I will say just a few things. So to Destiny 2's credit, to the Forsaken DLC's credit, if there ever was a time to buy it, it is now. Because if you haven't played Destiny, if you don't own Destiny 2, you can get the game itself with Forsaken, that DLC, and all expansions before it for essentially $60. So that, if you're a late Destiny 2 oncomer and you want to jump in now, maybe it's a good time. Everybody else, it's about $40. That's the standard edition. I'm kind of with you. The pre-order stuff, the pre-orders for DLC kind of, that kind of gets me the wrong way. I'm not a huge fan of that. I don't know, man. I want to buy it. I want to because I love Destiny. I have great memories of Destiny, but I'm like you. It's like, how much can I do? There's new stuff. There's new weapons. There's new armor. There's new game mode. There's a new story, and one of the main characters in the story dies, spoilers. And you're fighting to revenge, that revenge, but it's like, God, Destiny 2, you killed it, and now it's like, do I want to come back? So I actually probably will side with you. I'm gonna wait for the reviews for this one. Every other one I'm on it, but this one it's
Yes.
like I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna see what people say. I'm gonna watch the reviews. I'm gonna kind of nitpick, see what other people do, my friends, social, because social gaming and stuff like that. I wouldn't play it if. And Destiny too. Destiny is a game really you want to play socially anyway. But it's like I'm gonna wait this one out, and we'll see, man. If this doesn't go well, I think this could be the death of Destiny potentially. I mean, I don't know. It's just not looking great for them.
Yeah, we'll see. It's definitely not the same. Fortnite has taken over, so no game is going to have the same success it would 6 months ago or a year ago.
That's true. Very true. And so shifting gears one more time, let's come back to one more news story, and that is that Colin Kaepernick had a chance to be a Denver Bronco and said no. What is that story, Pat?
Oh, so this is a simple one. The main headline here in the last week or two has been that John Elway offered Colin Kaepernick a job and he said no. And that was it. That was the whole story.
Yep, that was the headline.
Bought in, they freaked out about it, they shared it, and all of a sudden people are like, wait, let's Google this.
Mm-hmm.
Are we sure this is 100% accurate?
Mm-hmm.
And it turns out that this job offer came before the 2016 season.
So 2 years
which
ago.
Is the season, 2 years ago, which is the season when all of his political endeavors began, when he started taking knees for the anthem, etc.
Mm-hmm.
So back then, he was actually a fairly sought-after quarterback. He could run. He had an arm. He had demonstrated, the capacity to win. And so, the Broncos offered him a job. So did several teams at the time. The 49ers were looking to potentially trade him. But joining the Broncos at the time would have also been a $5 million pay cut almost. And so, of course, he said no. I mean, it's 100% logical. So I don't know what John Elway was thinking when he decided to release this information, which he was pretty confident he shouldn't even have released. And I would agree because it was basically wrong.
Yeah, that's a tricky one. And like you said, I think the knee-jerk reaction from a lot of people that saw that was, oh, Colin Kaepernick's ungrateful. A lot of people, and whether you agree with him or not, that's not the point here. A lot of people like to bash Colin Kaepernick. A lot of people like to support Colin Kaepernick. And man, was this an opportunity for the Kaepernick haters to come out and say, look, he turned down this job. But then we read into it, like you said, and it's, oh, this was 2 years ago when he was with the Niners, and he would have had to been traded, and there was interest, and he would have taken a $5 million pay cut, and all this other stuff. And again, I think the haters that would say, NFL athletes are overpaid anyway, but that's another story. That's a tough one, man. It's really hard, and I think it brings to light our topic this week. So it's a really good transition into that. It brings to light that sometimes not sometimes, I would argue we really need to read and look at what we're reading online carefully and analyze it. But the simple fact is, a lot of times we don't have time to do that. We see that spicy story, and our knee-jerk reaction is press that share button, press that send button, and then off it goes. And we've shared something that we think is one way, but is actually another. And again, not that this story is fake news. It's actually completely accurate. But that our perceptions of it could be different based on headlines, based on clickbaity titles, which, again, I don't think this was. People just didn't take the time to read into the story. So, Pat, what is exactly fake news?
So fake news, by definition, would be news that consists of deliberate misinformation or hoaxes that is spread via a traditional print or broadcast news media or even on online social media. So if the USA Today publishes an article and all of a sudden someone comes out and says, no, this is just a lie, that's the definition of fake news. When I think of fake news, what I really think of is clickbait. I think of, someone deliberately trying to sway opinions or beliefs based on what they want you to believe. And so I think a lot of it's just misinformation if we look at the definition. It's not, I don't think there's tons and tons and tons of people and companies that are just lying to us boldly. What's happening is, like you just said, they're taking that knee-jerk reaction, they embellish it a little bit, They hope to be the first one to release the news so that they can views the most commentary.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden, they just should have done the extra research ahead of time, and it turns out they just weren't 100% right.
Yeah, and so
I don't. They're certainly not. There certainly are people that are just lying. That
Mhm.
is happening, and that is a problem.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's actually the majority, at least what I see.
Sure.
What do you think, Luke?
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. I don't believe that all of what could be considered fake news is necessarily malicious or harmfully intended. Now, like you said, there are some websites that do deliberately spread false information. And those websites are wrong. Those are dangerous. Like you said, I feel like sometimes it's just we don't read into the story all the way. We don't take time. And a lot of times it's just stopping and thinking of the old thing, if this is too good to be true, it probably is. If this is sensationalized even a little bit, it may be, because sensationalization gets headlines. That's just the reality of, us. No one wants to read a story about, your day at work, because everybody goes to work. Someone wants to read a story about something exceptional that happens. Sometimes these stories need to be fact-checked. And there are websites for that. Some of those websites include Snopes, PolitiFact, NPR Fact Check, factcheck.org. There are others. And you might say, hey, Luke, these are biased sources. But most of them, though, are nonpartisan, and they check numerous sources. For instance, PolitiFact checks numerous sources. Snopes has a history of checking multiple sources. NPR Fact Check is a non-biased, nonpartisan organization, as well as factcheck.org. So even you might say, well, how do you know these aren't fake news? They do the research. They check these things too. And again, if you want to trust them, that depends on, your whole understanding of this fake news cycle and what to believe anyway. I think we were talking before the show about this, Pat. If you surround yourself in your bubble, and you only hear what you want to hear, confirmation bias tells you that's what you're going to believe. So yeah, I think it's tricky. It's hard to spot, but we do have resources like Snopes, like PolitiFact, like NPR Fact Check, and others. And that's where we come into the interesting part of the show, Pat. Today we're going to play a little game, and we're going to see if you can spot the fake news. Now, I'm using two sites here, and I'll link both in the description. Snopes for fact checking, and we're using a subreddit called r/NotTheOnion, which posts maybe sensationalized headlines that are actually true that you would think are false. Because as we know, The Onion is a satire news site. They post deliberately satirical pieces, so pieces that are kind of jokes or, intentionally fake to be funny. And they put that in their description. So The Onion is very clear, like, this is not news. But, so they're satire. But, so let's see if you can do this, Pat. You think you can do it? And if you do, let me tell you, if you get it right, you will hear this sound. And if you get it wrong, you will hear this sound. And let's see what you can do. I will give you the headline and just a brief abbreviation of the story, and you'll have to tell me if it is real, fake, or in between, like some of it's true, but some of it's fake.
I'm ready.
All right, so let's start with the first story here. The first story, the claim is, a new Facebook algorithm only shows posts from about 24 of your friends in your newsfeed.
I call fake.
According to Snopes, you are correct. That claim is false. And the origin of that was in December of 2017. There was a report about this algorithm, and according to Snopes, this is inaccurate. They again have done some research. They contacted Facebook. And so they've claimed that is false. They have rated that as a false on their website. So 1 for 0, Pat. Nice job. 1 for 1. 1 for 0.
All right, so here's why I think that. I'll just do this for every question. So here's my reasoning. First of all, this has become really, really popular in the last few months. I've seen this all over my Facebook. I'm sure you have too.
Yep.
It's just a copy-paste. It starts with, this is real, and it goes into all the details about, you just need to comment on this or whatever, and all of a sudden I'll see more of your posts. So the reason I thought this was fake and have been thinking it was fake for a while is that Two reasons. One, none of these copy paste things on Facebook have ever been real. Okay? My bias is towards it being fake.
Right.
And two, I have a decent understanding of how databases and some of our more modern technology works. I'm certainly not programming it, but there's no benefit to Facebook to deliberately hide or show a significant amount of information that your friends are posting.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just think about it. What gain is there for Facebook if they're just hiding 75% of your friends' content? There just isn't.
Yeah, they would not make any, off ad revenue. They wouldn't make any money off that.
Yeah, I mean, there's just no benefit to them. And unfortunately, this became really, really popular shortly after a lot of congressional hearings and different pieces of information about how untrustworthy Facebook is.
That's true.
And so it makes this easier to believe and easier to jump on board.
I like it. Let's go to the next headline, the next story. This one deals with the holidays. The claim is that the modern image of Santa Claus was created by the Coca-Cola Company. Is that true, false, or a mixture?
Wow. I'm going to go with a mixture.
You're going to go with a mixture, and the correct answer is no. That's not actually correct. That is not correct. That is a false statement. The image of Santa Claus actually goes back farther than that, according to Snopes and some of the research they did. Coca-Cola Company began looking for ways to increase their marketing and to increase their sales during the winter. So in the 1930s, they turned to Santa Claus in a lot of their advertisements. So unfortunately, Pat, I got to give you this one and say that is incorrect, though we do see Santa Claus in a lot of Coca-Cola ads. So why did you think partial on that one?
So I thought it was partial because I don't know. That was a gut feel that said, you know what? Luke specifically said modern view, and I figured it was the real long beard and a heavy set Santa. Maybe before it was a more average, I don't know, just a more average person. Maybe I don't know. I just genuinely thought that it was, they kind of sculpted the modern view, but certainly didn't create it.
Sure. That's a really good point. I think you're completely right on that one. I think it's a difficult one. Let's stick with Santa for a minute. Let's stick with Santa. Because I got another one about Santa for you. Let's see what you think about this one. The claim is a Tennessee boy died in the arms of a local man portraying Santa Claus when he visited a hospital in order to cheer up children around Christmas time. Is that true, false, or a little bit of both?
Well, I think there's always Santas that go visit kids. So I think that part is true.
Yes, but we're talking like a Santa Claus and a little boy dies in Santa's arms as he's holding him and trying to comfort him.
Well, then I'm going to say mixture. So I think it's true that Santa visited kids and false that a kid died in his arms.
I'm going to give you a ding for that one. That one can't be proven, and actually that is the quintessential fake news story that I always talk to people about because this was so widely spread in 2016. It received international coverage. It was shared on websites like the Washington Post and so many others. It's this gut-wrenching story, and I'll link the Snopes article here as well. It's this gut-wrenching story of this Santa Claus. He picks up his phone. He dresses up all the time, and he comes and he hears the story of this little boy, and the little boy is sitting there, and he's like, Santa, can you help me? And he says no, and the little boy dies in his arms, and he tells the story of how he's breaking down, driving home. He couldn't look at the mother. It's brutal. It's gut-wrenching. And so I actually shared this story on Facebook numerous times from different sources because I was like, holy cow, this is heartbreaking. It's so sad. It's like, man, this guy is such a good human being. And then you find out, oh, wait, he may have made all this crap up.
Yeah, I think that one I remember. So that was a little easy.
Yeah,
but, this one is, like you said, it's quintessential to the whole fake news conversation. Someone said something, and someone else, some news company in Knoxville, said, oh my gosh, this is crazy, let's share it now. A simple phone call or two to a few hospitals in the area just to double check real quick would have prevented this 100%. So this brought into question how what policies news companies have about pre-publishing verifications. And then when one real news company, the Knoxville Sentinel, I believe
It was.
they share it. That's a reputable news company. All of a sudden, all the other national major news companies just took it, ran with it, and shared it. Because why would another reputable news company lie? And that's a fair assumption. There's no benefit in lying. Unfortunately, they just didn't do their research. That's it.
Yeah, and I think you're completely right with that. And it's that sensational story. You want to get this out. It's the holidays. It's this gut-wrenching heart. You got to feel for this guy. Santa's such an amazing person. And then all of a sudden he's not, because none of this can be verified. That's tough, man. All right, moving on to the next one. This one, the city of Toronto the headline is, the city of Toronto is finally fixing a sinkhole after fed-up residents grew tomatoes in it.
False.
That is actually true. That is from r/Not the Onion. According to this article, residents actually grew, and there are pictures. Residents grew tomatoes in a sinkhole in this Toronto sinkhole. That's something. I'll make sure I link that in the description as well. Wow. So you missed that one, Pat, but you're still doing pretty good. Let's take a look at another one, shall we? Let's go with this one. The claim is Kohl's department stores are distributing a free $150 coupon online as a part of a back-to-school promotion. Is that true, false, or a little bit of both?
False. A little bit of both. Absolutely. Kohl's is very promotional.
Yes.
So there is some coupon for sure.
Yes.
But it's not $150.
Ding, yes, absolutely. That would make no logical business sense to give a free $150. Why would they do that?
There's literally no reason to give that much away for everybody. Not to mention, with the way they discount clothes, I would be able to buy my son's whole school year wardrobe with $150. So then they wouldn't actually get any money from me when I visited.
Hashtag not sponsored by Kohl's. But yeah, you're completely right. It makes no sense. But these are the kinds of things, like you said before, with the copy paste Facebook. I see these all the time. The one I saw when I lived in Indiana was the Kroger. You know, Kroger's giving away $50 free. Why would they do that? That makes no sense. Anyone, if they think, if you just stop and think, the point of a business is to do what? Make money. And if you're giving away free money, you're not making money. You're giving away free money in turn to give away your product. That is not wise business. And that's not from a business major. That's just from that's one of those, as I said earlier in the podcast, if it looks too good, if it sounds too good, it probably is too good. Yeah, and so you're completely right on that one, Pat. And Kohl's does do a lot of promotional, but not the $150 coupon. Let's move.
I mean,
go ahead.
If you just think of basic Kohl's Cash, they give you $10 if you spend $100.
Right.
They give you a 10% back, and the only reason they do that is to get you to come back into the store. Again, if they give you $150, you have no reason to spend your own real money.
Yeah, you're absolutely right with that. Yeah, that's. There you go. All right, let's move on to another one. Let's go with this story of the Keurig coffee maker mold warning. The claim is that Keurig coffee maker users are at risk because the machines are prone to the growth of mold, algae, and bacteria. Is that true, false, or a mixture?
I'm going with true.
I want to give you half.
Alright.
I mean, the simple fact is anything that runs water through it can get mold, so that is accurate. If not regularly cleaned, anything that runs water through it will get moldy, yes. What's false is the issue is not limited to Keurig. I myself have been guilty of leaving the coffee pot on too long, and then I don't have coffee for a few days, and then I come back and it's ugh. So
it's really gross.
Yeah, it's not great. So It's not exclusive to Keurig. Keurig is not wrong here. They're not doing anything that like promotes mold growth in their coffee makers. Keurig is a fine company. Hashtag not sponsored. But just that's a little bit of both, half and half.
All right, so to me, this one is a quality example of using a half-truth to your advantage.
Yes.
So let's just pretend someone who works at Mr. Coffee sent some information to USA Today about Keurig's getting moldy. Like you said, that is absolutely possible and true.
Sure.
And if someone says it's just Keurig, great. And then all of a sudden, people don't buy Keurigs, and they instead go buy Mr. Coffee. So Mr. Coffee would actually benefit from a story like that, even though they're just as prone and susceptible to the same problem. This happened again recently. So BuzzFeed just posted an article, and you and I commented on it about Purdue's over admittance and people having to stay in temporary dorms.
Yep.
Let's be real. That happens everywhere.
At every
all over
dorm.
the place.
Yep.
Every year.
Yep.
So
yeah, and you're right. And like you said, the reason I shared it was because I went to Indiana, who's our rival, Purdue. It made Purdue look bad. And so absolutely, it's, and obviously for us, it's just friendly banter because we both have friends that graduated from Purdue. But it's just joking back and forth. But you're completely right. If a company did do that and there was some PR involved, that could be really damaging. Let's move on to the next one. So this report is a little political, but we'll see. The claim is that a photograph shows a Seattle Seahawks player burning an American flag while celebrating in the locker room. Is that true, false, or a half-truth?
False.
That is absolutely false. The original picture has been doctored. It has been photoshopped to show a flag burning in the gentleman's hand, the player Michael Bennett. It has been photoshopped, and that one has been spread far and wide, and the reason I included it was because I'm so tired of seeing it being spread. Just because someone has a strongly held political view doesn't mean you can exacerbate it to this point where you're photoshopping in, and number one, let me say, I'm just looking at the image. It's not a quality Photoshop either. You can't use this for political gain on either side. That's putting words in people's mouths. That's exacerbating a truth. That is the essence of fake news to me.
Yeah, it's another example of confirmation bias. So when you see that and you're already upset because NFL players are taking a knee and disrespecting America, and whatever your opinion is, if you want to believe it, you will believe it. In reality, in my opinion, there's, again, no benefit to that player to do that when he's in such a public view, public spotlight. I mean, he knows that would be everywhere if he did it. It's technically illegal, and there's just no benefit to that.
Right.
I mean, this country is still what made him a millionaire today.
Right.
Whether he agrees with everything or not, made him a millionaire. So there's no benefit in going that extreme. I
completely agree with you. Let's move on to another one, shall we? So, the news story article title, Somerset, which I believe is a town, Somerset lost gold ring found on carrot that was dug up for dinner. A gold ring was lost in a vegetable garden 12 years ago, has been found in a carrot that was dug up for dinner. Is that story true? Is that story false? Or is it a partial truth?
I'm going to go with false.
According to the BBC, this story is accurate. And again, I will link it in the description. According to the BBC, this story about two individuals, a ring being lost, it must have been 12 years ago. I thought I'd never see it again. I was amazed a carrot had grown through it. So this from the BBC. What were your thoughts on that one?
I think it's, it's not a political story. It's not a divisive story. So it's 50-50 if it's truth or a lie. The only reason it's now news is because the odds of that happening are unbelievable. It's a feel-good story. So people made it news, shared it, and it just happens to be real. I went with the odds thinking, what is the true percent chance that happens? And I called false, and The only reason it's news is because it really happened.
You are completely correct in that. Let's do a few more, shall we? This one, we've already looked at that one. Let's do this one here. This says the claim is some 600 murders took place in Chicago during the second weekend of August 2018. This from, I believe her name is Omarosa, from the former director of communications for the Office of Public Liaison in the Trump administration. She made an appearance on The Daily Show to talk about her new book, and this point came up in conversation. She had pointed out that, quote, over 600 murders over the weekend in Chicago. Is that claim true, false, or a little bit of both?
A little bit of both.
Now, if you're saying that murders occurred over the weekend in Chicago, that is accurate. The actual number of people murdered in that weekend in Chicago was 1, according to NBC Chicago and the Chicago Tribune. So that's not to say murders didn't occur in Chicago. 600 in a weekend, though, not accurate.
That's a lot.
That is a lot. That is a lot of murders. 600 in one weekend, in fact, too high, no way, not true. So, Pat, let's try to end on a good note. Let's see if you can get this one right. This one, let's see what you think about this one here. The last one we'll go with is the title of the headline, Hunter dies after elephant he was hunting falls on him. Would this story be true? And let me just give you a brief summary of the article. It's in South Africa. A professional big game hunter died on Friday afternoon during a hunt in Zimbabwe when a member of his group fired at a storming elephant and the animal fell on him. Would that story be true, false, or a little bit of both?
I'm calling true only because I want it to be true. I feel like he deserved it.
According to News 24 and according to the Telegraph, this story is accurate. The hunter was killed. He was a frequent hunter in Africa. He was killed when the elephant fell on him. So according to several sites, this story is true. So,
all right, so here's my reflection on these last basically 10 questions.
Sure.
First of all, it is challenging to spot what is real, what is fake.
Yes.
It was more challenging when the story wasn't political in any way, when it had no divisiveness.
Right.
That's definitely what made it harder. I tended to do better on the ones that were business-based, technology-based, political in most regards. So things that have where there's a potential benefit of lying to somebody, someone would benefit from it. Right. But in stories like an elephant crushing a dude or a carrot growing through a ring, it doesn't really matter if they're right or wrong.
Yeah, in the grand scheme of life, like, it's not the biggest of deals. It's not. No one's public perception on carrots is going to change because, the lady found a ring and a carrot. Like, that's not going to happen.
Can't eat carrots anymore, guys.
Yeah, sorry.
They eat gold.
They do, apparently. But, yeah, I think you're right. And you even have in the notes here, I'm giving you about 5.5 right, 4.5 wrong. That's difficult. And the ones, like you said, the ones that are harder are the ones that don't deal as much with the politics, that deal with, like, the Santa Claus story, the Coca-Cola inventing Santa Claus, the modern perception of Santa Claus. Because, like you said, in the grand scheme of political agendas, in the grand scheme of business agendas, those don't necessarily have a bias or a, like, dire position they're trying to get across to you or something they're trying to confirm to you as true. To be blunt, they're kind of just fun. They're interesting stories. The story of the lady with the ring and the carrot, that's just an interesting story. The story of Santa Claus was an interesting story. That's hard. And yeah, I think you're right, Pat. I think that this can be difficult. So what would you say would be your suggestion to people in order to maybe, so I'm going to give you a ding for the record for being the best. You got it more correct than not. What would you say would be your biggest tip for spotting fake news and trying to avoid spreading fake news?
Number one, take a step back and think about what you're reading.
Mm-hmm.
So that's always step one. Don't just immediately go with your initial thought. Number two, try to figure out the reason someone may publish a lie or some bit of fake news. So if it's a potential political gain, a potential financial gain, that will kind of lead you towards at least thinking this could be fake. The last point I would make is that your common sense and your general knowledge of the way the world works is also going to be a good measuring stick by which whether or not things are fake. So, for example, I am a corporate businessman. When you tell me Kohl's is handing out $150, it's just not happening. Mm-hmm. There's no benefit to them to do that. Like we said, $150 could be way too much. $10 to get you in the door to maybe spend $150, that seems reasonable. Mm-hmm. So those are my 3 tips. Luke, do you agree, disagree, or do you have more?
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. I think, like you said, you got to rely on your self-understanding and your ability to stop and take a second. And like I said, I've said several times in this podcast, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. And if you think, I do this all the time with stories that confirm my biases about things. If I think one way about something, I'm going to search it and I'm going to fact and check and look around in other sites and see if I can find similar stories or similar people reporting on that story so that I can know, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4 news sites have reported on this. Maybe it's accurate information. This information I'm getting is accurate. Check the sources too. Look at who your sources are. Okay, you really need to understand. For the record, this podcast is created by 2 average people. We're not fake news experts, okay? But in the same time, we can still have informed, educated opinions about it. It's going to be difficult for you to, if you can't find who the author of an article is, it's going to be difficult for you to fact check and look at that person's other articles. That person may write satire. That person may be one of those intentional fake news spreaders. That is what you need to be aware of. You need to check that on major news sites. You need to check that in things you read in general. The problem, what I see with fake news is that it spreads quickly. These viral stories go fast, very quick. Social media, Twitter, all these things, Facebook, all these things make things spread so quickly. And to be very frank, a lot of us don't have time to verify. I keep going back to that Santa Claus story. When I read that story about Santa Claus, my heart broke, tearing out my heartstrings. I wanted to share it. Look at this amazing human being. I didn't even think twice. Send, done. And then I come to find out later it's fake and I feel like an idiot because I spread something that wasn't actually true. Okay? So knowing your sources, seeking other information, and just, like you said, a lot of it is just common sense. If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. I tend to believe most people are smart, informed people, but I also understand that people don't have a ton of time. That's where it gets tricky, and that's where, even with these fact-checking sites, sometimes they get it wrong. So it's hard. But I think if we trust journalists, that is their true job. If they are a true journalist, their job is to get to the essence of the story, to get to the root, okay, and to really do due diligence. Okay, most of them are not out to write fake news unless they are intentionally, in which case I would say they're a fake news writer, not a journalist. But you have to think about your sources. You have to think about where you're getting your information. You have to think about the website you're getting your information. You have to search your website. If you're getting it from a website, search that website online. See what other sites are saying about it. And see just the other side as well. You need to try to, if there's one way to view this, there's got to be another way. There's got to be some other side to this story. But it's tricky, man. And we live in a generation and a time where media spreads so quick. It's at the touch of a finger. It's really hard to handle.
Yeah, I think, my other thoughts here would be definitely to agree with you in saying know your source. So when I scroll through Facebook and I see that TotalProSports.com shared some crazy NFL story, but I'm also scrolling through Facebook and I never saw it shared from NFL.com. I never saw anything from it on ESPN. Never saw anything from it on Fox Sports or NBC Sports or CBS Sports. Literally nowhere else has even commented on that story existing. I'm going to go ahead and guess that one's fake.
Yeah.
So if there's only one person saying it, probably not true. My other thought would be that any major news company that you've heard of. So if you've heard of the company, you know that they are, they make a living by sharing news. It's at least 90% or more likely that their story is true. I will not say that they're not biased, but being biased is being different than just lying.
Yeah, it's true. Very true.
Politics is a great example. It's easy to leave out some information to get your point across, but at least what they're saying is not false, generally.
Yeah, very true.
Those are my thoughts.
Yeah, it's a difficult thing. It's a world where it's not the print newspaper of before, and it's something that I think we need to be aware of. And even if we're just sharing the harmless story about Santa Claus on our social media feeds, the harmless story, just be aware, because going back to the Kohl's Cash example, sharing that is, it's not accurate. You're gonna get a Kohl's and they're gonna be like, what are you talking about? You're not gonna, and you're gonna end up disappointed. And I think that's really the essence of all this, is the things that are fake and lies that are spread on the internet disappoint us. They keep us from the reality. And again, that's not to say the reality isn't biased. And that's completely fine. Everyone inherently has bias, and that's completely understandable. But these deliberate methods, or these deliberate things that are trying to get us to believe falsehoods, I think they disappoint us, especially when we find out they're not true. And then if we don't want to believe they're not true, we even go farther down the rabbit hole, of confirmation bias, of, oh, well, you say it's fake. No, it's got to be true. It's got to be. Well, it's not. It's okay to be wrong. Humans error. It's okay. And like you said, big news sources error sometimes. That's okay. Everybody makes mistakes. But the deliberate spread of misinformation, I think, is a scary and arguably kind of dangerous thing. Final thoughts, Pat, before we wrap up here?
No, I think I'm good. I would like to just, tell everybody that next week we have another interesting topic that's not sports or video game related. So some of you will be pleased to hear.
Woohoo!
Next week, what we want to talk about is things that we might change about the culture of quote-unquote working in America. So, how do we approach our workday? How do we manage or take vacations? What is work-life balance? What does that mean? How do we achieve it? And different things along the line of culture in the workplace. And I hope that, it's a good conversation starter. Maybe it's a good thing that just makes some people think, especially if you're a person today that leads others in a career or in a job. Maybe it makes you stop and wonder if the way that you guys are doing things is the best way or the most modern way, or maybe there's just some room for improvement.
Sure. And even comparatively to other countries in the world, how do I approach the workday? With a lot of coffee, is what I'll say.
That's right.
Yes, that is the one thing we can all agree on, is that we all approach the workday with a lot of coffee.
See you next time. Don't forget to find us on social media, Facebook, PNLIRL, Twitter, LIRL1. We'll see you soon.
Thanks for joining us this week. We'll see you next time.